Hi, and welcome to NeuroWomen Natter. We are live. I am Toni Horn. I am a white female with short blonde highlighted hair, wearing my glasses and a spot of makeup today, actually. Charlie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Charlie Hart, also known as Awesome Charlie. I'm also a blonde though, and I have a rainbow mural behind me.
Love that.
And welcome to episode 18. Episode 18, can you believe it?
I know, we've been doing this for 18 months on the trot, and it feels like yesterday that we started it, but I still enjoy it. I still love it.
Yeah, me too.
Which is really good. And today, because it's March, we wanted to acknowledge Neurodiversity Celebration Week, which lands in March. And it's about Neurodiversity Celebration Week is about recognizing strengths and the diversity of the neurodivergent mind, right? But what we wanted to do today is slightly more honest conversation, because while celebration is important, many neurodivergent people are also navigating real challenges in every day as well. So we're going to be kind of looking at the superpower narrative that we hear so much of. And Charlie, I'm going to come to you in a minute. I think the rise of the neurodivergence is a superpower narrative it started with good intent. It's still there. And it's also others can still describe themselves as having a superpower. And I absolutely love that. Some people still say, I feel like I've got a superpower, and I think it's brilliant. But there are also other people out there that feel some of their challenges are dismissed by that narrative, and it can feel a little bit uncomfortable.
I see why it is a thing, and I am ambivalent about it.
Someone might be incredibly creative and have like that big picture thinking, but at the same time, they might be battling with things like time blindness, overwhelm, needing, 3 times the energy just to get through a normal working day. And I think sometimes, again, we talk about the iceberg effect, isn't it? Is that we only demonstrate and show, especially when you're high masking neurodivergent, is what you're really good at. The perfectionist, the person who wants to be the people pleaser. But then again, we're hiding everything that's going on underneath that iceberg that is taking its toll and it's melting away slowly. And I was doing a talk about the identification of what being autistic looks like. And my question was, what does it look like to you? And again, because everybody has their own narrative. But when somebody shows up as high masking, or if they're all ADHD and they're really good at eye contact, but that doesn't sit right with me. Are they autistic? I was like, what you don't see is you see the person who is there, you see the person who's performing well, but you don't see all the stuff that goes behind it. And I demonstrated this in the fact that if I'm going to an event, you don't see the hours I've spent going through what train I need, what's stopping it, how long does it take me to get there, having a detailed out so I know exactly where I'm going, what time I've got to be there, all this extra stuff that I've got to do to reduce my anxiety to show up.
I think when I was still working in HR, I was trying to look like I had my shit together all the time, which meant that if I was overwhelmed and I hadn't balanced my energy well, I'd end up going into a meltdown when I finished work or like off camera when working from home. So nobody would know I was struggling except my husband and my kids. And they would see me volcanic. It affect my sleep as well, because quite often you get like a cycle of shame after a meltdown like that. And then that will have quite a drastic impact on your quality of sleep and your performance the next day as well. Things like how profoundly we're affected by our struggles, but also how much we excel at our strengths, they're all dynamic and they all change on a daily basis and even from 1 hour to the next. My performance even now can be really rubbish if I've had an argument with Si. So I have to kind of say to him, if I've got a speaking event in the afternoon, I have to say to him, if you're in a shitty mood, stay right away from me because I cannot have you bring me down. And he will respect that, and he will. It's so easy to paper over all those struggles until you're like a shaken Coke bottle that needs to explode.
Oh, yeah, I've been there. Absolutely. The one thing I like about the celebration week is that what it's trying to do, and I think why it originated, it was moving away from the defect only
Yeah.
narrative, right? And it's celebrating different ways of thinking. And because historically, neurodivergence has been framed as entirely through a defect lens.
Mm.
And what Neurodiversity Celebration Week tries to do is shift the narrative slightly to say different brains bring different perspectives, creativity, and the ways of solving problems. What strengths do you see most often neurodivergent people that organisations still underestimate, Charlie?
That's a big question. But if I start by looking at my own, so I know I'm meticulous in my attention to detail. I know I'm good at solving problems. So I'll investigate the underlying cause of a problem rather than just getting past an error message. I'm creative with how I display data so I can bring it to life. I'm creative with a lot of things, actually, but I only kind of realised that since stepping away from the stressful job in HR. But there are so many things that I get, and some of them, they look like strengths at first, but they can also have their downsides. So I've got a photographic memory, for instance. I've got a really vivid audio visual autobiographical memory. So someone said something shitty to me, I can not only picture them saying it and hear their exact tone of voice,
Yeah.
I can't actually get it out of my head. So it can cause us to ruminate, and that can exacerbate like our trauma responses. And if we've got complex PTSD, it definitely feeds into that. If I'm going through a bit of a bad time and I'm getting a lot of RSD and I think people are criticizing me and they don't like me, but when I'm talking about why to employ people like me and why to support us and retain us and appreciate us for who we are, I'm more likely to talk about how that made me shit hot at my job as an HR systems analyst. But I know that it also causes me a lot of grief.
And again, I think it's that point, isn't it? That strengths don't remove the need for support. Adjustments are not advantages. It's about inclusion, and
Yeah.
it's about helping us to do our job at the same level as people that don't need that additional support. And I've said it before, even something like speech to text, for me, that's a huge piece of software that saves me time.
Yeah. Yeah. And cognitive load. Yeah.
Absolutely, cognitive load of having to, and the amount of times I used to overwork because I wanted to be seen as not different. I wanted to be on the same, I didn't want to be seen as, not capable. And again, the additional hours that went into doing more work, not even more work, is that I had to do it in a different way of kind of rewriting, going over, proofreading, whatever it may be. And actually, by that one simple adjustment, I didn't have to do more hours than I needed to do. So I wasn't on the verge of burnout.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that workplaces need to look out for, is the people pleasers.
Yeah, definitely. No, we've talked about this before, haven't we? But I think that the fact that you have developed these coping strategies and the routines and rituals that reassure you that you will deliver and be on time and that it will be great, those are strengths as well. They're framed pathologically. Like if we have a highly fixated interest, which is where expertise comes from, that's quite often framed as obsessive. Whereas autism advocates, they've more recently started using the term monotropism, which Fergus Murray's mum coined, Dinah Murray. It's almost like tunnel vision, but it is a gift. It does mean that we can get really engrossed in something and do excellent work and feel great. But then if we're pulled out of that by something urgent coming in, that can be incredibly dysregulating. So I just think that in order to benefit from our value in the workforce with all the strengths that we bring, and because we're human beings and every human being has innate value anyway, you have to be patient and supportive with things we find hard, and you have to care about our cognitive load and not let us get overwhelmed and burned out.
Yeah, I did a post this morning on LinkedIn about meetings, because I remember sitting in large meetings, and sometimes I'll be completely on point, and like the answer will come to me straight away, and I'll be like eager to go, well, why are we not trying this? But then other times I would have to go away and process the information, and then I'd be really gutted that there was no way of me going back into that room to present that, because we've moved on.
Yeah.
And again, I think that people are missing out on that strength when people deep think, and they process, and they come back and go, actually, now I've actually put all these pieces together. If we did this, this, and this. But sometimes people reward quick thinking.
Yeah, which you need sometimes. So,
You do.
like if you look at IT, you usually have an IT service desk in a larger organization where they're resolving things quickly. But then if there's something they can't resolve on the service desk, it usually goes to a resolver group. So someone with a role like mine, systems analyst for HR and payroll systems, they would then look at it and they'd have more time to think about it. They'd have time to talk to the supplier, to try different things, to have a go at fixing it in a test environment, that kind of thing. It's really important that we've got time to think and to process and to problem solve, because if we're quickly churning through a number of queries that as they come in, then we haven't got that time. But also many people wouldn't have the skills, and that's again a skill that you quite often get with autism and ADHD if it's something you're interested in. If I'm trying to analyze a query about a pension contribution, it's like computer says no, because it's completely boring and I just can't. But if it's about HR management information and employee engagement and all that stuff that I love, and diversity and inclusion, I will absolutely solve the problem or give you something creative and valuable.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm overloaded.
Yesterday, and I've never done this before, may I add, I'm doing another new course, and then I was really hyper focused onto it, really concentrating, and then I looked at the clock and went, oh, it's 3:20. I've got to go and get Louis. Oh, and like this panic station, and I have never ever missed, not getting lucky enough. I got there, I sprinted, and I run like Phoebe from Friends, right? So it's I sprinted to the school to get him. But again, it's that if something had distracted me in that point, I think I would, if it wasn't for the fact that there was a need and it was my child, I know that I would have come all like, oh, why have you taken me out of this? I'm completely in this, and I'm well focused onto this, and what my passion point is there. And again, it's about understanding that. We talk about when you get the little Teams message that says, "Can we have a quick chat?"
Only if you tell me what it's about, or I'm gonna get so anxious that I can't string a sentence together, and it won't go well. Yeah,
I've completely come out of what I'm doing. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, and now I'm going to be less productive for the rest of the day until we actually have this chat.
Yeah.
But again, when we talk about celebrating neurodiversity, for me, the real inclusion isn't about awareness posters once a year.
No, definitely.
It's about everyday practice, right? It's things like clear communication, flexible working, psychological safety. I know that's a big word that we don't like using, but it's real.
I love it.
It makes me feel important when I say it. And leaders who understand the different brains work in different ways. And I think if we really want to invest in neurological difference, it's about listening.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Listening to lived experiences is about asking people what it is that they need and what they want.
So I think people need to create an environment where any member of staff, I don't care if they identify as neurodivergent or have a diagnosis or whatever, any member of staff should feel safe to talk to their manager about the things that they struggle with, about their ideas, what might help them to succeed in their roles or just to be happier and more fulfilled. Any of that stuff, without ever fearing that they'll get that held against them, that they'll be mocked or discriminated against or worse. So you proposed the topic for today, that we look at neurodiversity celebration, but without ignoring the bad bits.
Yeah.
And one of the really hard truths for me is that quite a lot of organisations say that they celebrate and support all kinds of minds. But actually, if someone is a pain in the arse to them, if they won't stop talking about a project that they're not in support of, or you can tell I'm talking from past experience here, but if they just won't they won't let it lie or something like that, it can quite often end up in a situation where it isn't resolved, but the person is let go quietly. Quite often there's a non-disclosure agreement involved, and I was really hoping that those would be illegal by now, unlawful for discrimination cases. But it does mean that we don't see the full extent of that picture. There are a lot of employers who walk the walk, talk the talk, right up until someone is too challenging to the wrong person that's too high up the chain. And then it's straight back to the patriarchy, those with the power closing ranks, and the marginalised person being out on their ear and not even able to talk about it. So that's the big, difficult, the hard bit that I immediately thought of, and I'm sure a lot of other people will as well. I've got a collection of those that we're going to read out sometime on this podcast, but I've kind of been putting it off because I think it's super important, but it's also quite depressing.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, obviously with the work that we both do, we come across this a lot. And what I see as well is that they shift the person from one line manager to another. Again, that's not helpful. It's not, the root cause is that person needs the right communication. That person needs the right tools to do their job, and they're not getting it because we're not doing the training.
Yeah. And then they're not engaged as well. So employee engagement is one of the things that I talk about in terms of neurodiversity inclusion and ERGs and everything. You can't be give your best self at work unless you're engaged. And I really think that you can't be engaged unless you've got a voice. People don't want to be treated like automatons with no opinions, no needs and no preferences. People want to be treated respectfully, like the adults we are, and given a say. And one of the most awful things is if the organisation says they want to give us a say, but then we say something they don't like. So we'll give you a voice, but only if you support the visions of leadership. We won't give you a voice if you're going to rock the boat too much. You stick your head above the parapet and we'll shoot it off. You can be happy for years with the adjustments you need, and you've worked out how to do the demands of your job without getting overwhelmed. You can advocate for your needs, like if you're on 2 projects at once. It only takes a change of senior leader, and that can be completely out of the window.
I went into an organisation and did like a survey, and a lot of the survey come back to say, and I think it was like 26% said that they weren't comfortable revealing their diagnosis, their suspected diagnosis. And then when you dig a bit deeper into that, you know, a lot of them are saying, well, I just don't want to be a burden.
Yeah, we don't like to other ourselves. We don't like to be a pain in the arse. So I quite often say, I think, by the time, say it's an environmental thing, like in my case, a noisy air conditioning invariably, but it might be sun in your eyes from a window. There's many things it could be in the sensory environment. By the time we actually say something, generally we've already been dismissed a couple of times and we don't want to be a pain. So by the time we say something, we're really, really uncomfortable. We spend a lot of our working lives accommodating other people because we don't want to piss people off and we don't want to be a pain.
Yeah, I talk about that. I'm doing a meeting tomorrow, actually, locally, about how to advocate for yourself as a neurodivergent person. And again, it's about advocating in the right way. It's about being assertive enough that it's polite, because being assertive is not about being rude. It's not about confidence. It's about, how do I advocate in the right way that I'm going to be listened to? And I think that's really important, because people just don't know where to start with that conversation. And again, I think when we look at Neurodiversity Celebration Week, maybe the goal isn't just celebration. It's celebrating the strengths that neurodivergent people bring, but also recognizing that very real changes and making sure that the right support is in place as well.
Absolutely.
And also, I want, if anyone's listening to this, so if any of the neurodivergent people are listening to this, your experience is valid. And after today, like a celebration, or if it feels like a celebration or a survival, it's valid.
Definitely. Yeah, and like those dark clouds and silver linings, if we're going through a really hard time, we won't see the silver linings. If you're a Pollyanna neurodiversity advocate that thinks it's all unicorns farting rainbows, then it's dismissing the very real struggles of a lot of people. And actually, many of the people who are writing posts about their superpowers are multiply privileged. And although they will have difficulties due to their neurotypes, they've also got power, generally due to being affluent, white, quite often men, usually cisgender, heterosexual. So they don't really know what it's like to be in a position of less power and have the neurodivergent difficulties as well. So it's really important to take an intersectional lens and to take with a pinch of salt whatever any multi-millionaire rich white dudes might be saying about it.
I completely get it. We've got some comments in the
I completely forgot to show the chat.
Trying to get a divergent woman is incredibly difficult in the current market. My daughter gets interviewed, not the job. Which businesses do employ these young people? Obviously, that's a really open question. And I think what you need to do is research. It's about researching about, if you go, you will find the real neuro-inclusive employers. I've come across quite a few in my time that are really, really, really invested in their neurodivergent employees, because they understand the value that their minds bring into their business. So do some research around the businesses that are, really good with supporting divergent employees. And it also depends on what kind of line of work that they want to get into as well, right? So it's a really hard question.
I'd recommend checking out Even Break as well. It's aimed at finding job opportunities for people with disabilities and neurodivergent people, and also have a look at the outward-facing equality and diversity statements on the websites of employers that you're thinking about applying to. But also the Glassdoor reviews can be quite revealing as well. It does depend on the industry, but there are certain industries, I think, where they know that many of the applicants are potentially neurodivergent, and they're more likely to bear that in mind and not to discriminate against them in the recruitment process.
Absolutely. Samantha's commented about, most part we don't work 9 till 5.
Yeah.
As well. And do you know what mostly I come across with the 9 to 5 thing is that actually it relates to ADHD more than anything, is the quiet. It's not being constantly interrupted. It's not the Teams, it's not the emails. And again, you may have a complete dip in the afternoon, and then you get a surge of energy in the evening. And again, it's understanding those energy levels. And again, when I talk about advocating for yourself, especially if you're employed and not self-employed, it's about advocating of when your energy levels are best. I remember saying to my boss, please, let's not ever have a one-to-one first thing in the morning, because you're not going to get my best. You're just not. I need to have it probably about 1 o'clock after lunch, when I've kick-started my brain. And again, understanding that about yourself can really help to advocate.
That's so true. And it will change over time as well, and with like monthly secular fluctuations. Samantha's the expert on this stuff, but I've noticed that since I've been perimenopause, or I mean maybe even past that, I'm not sure, but I've been having a slump in the afternoon, but I've been trying to push through, and then when it's time to start cooking for my kids, I'm like, do you know what? I'll try one last thing. But then I'll get really into that and it'll be 6:30 and the kids will be saying, Mum, why haven't you even started cooking yet? But I've done nothing.
Really irritated by dinner time going, oh, I've got to do this thing, but I'm doing this thing.
So really, I should be trying to get out for a walk or something in the post-lunch slump that I usually have. Literally yesterday, she was stuck working on her email funnel, couldn't put it down, broke for dinner, couldn't stop thinking about it, stayed up till midnight. Yeah, that's what my day was like on Monday. I was constantly at my desk all day and all evening, and then did the same again yesterday. We talk about hyperfocus and monotropism as being a strength, and it can be pathologized as obsessive behaviors, but actually it can take us away from doing the things we need to do for our own well-being. So it's absolutely a blessing and a curse. So Toni didn't know I was bringing this, but
I didn't.
Yeah, she's written more than one book, but this is the one that I've just bought and added to my pile of books I intend to read. No, I am going to read it. So it's about setting up ERGs and leveraging them and empowering them, which is really a key topic for me at the moment because I keep getting asked to talk not just to neurodiversity ERGs, but to have content that suits a number of different ERGs at once. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But more importantly, we are doing a webinar on the first day of Neurodiversity Celebration Week, and we would love you to be there. And again, we're talking about ERGs in that, how to empower and leverage your neurodiversity ERG and more. This is going to be really helpful for anyone in leadership roles, HR, equality and diversity, neurodivergent people. So yeah, please come along. I'll share the link to join in the show notes.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you for anyone who's listening, either live or on the podcast. And we'll see you next month.
Yeah, see you next month, and happy Neurodiversity Celebration Week as well.